with another spooky story. The witches in Zimbabwe are so wicked. Story time. So we're gonna call the person that submitted the story Tolu. I like that name. And she's from Zimbabwe. So Tolu says she has lots of stories because her father's mother used to be a witch. And she said, in Shona we say Miroi. Tell me if I butchered that. So Tolu said growing up, for as long as she can remember, her parents, specifically her mother, not so much her father, but her mother, did not like her going to her grandmother's house. Grandmother being the father's mother. Now she doesn't know why her father wasn't against it, knowing his mother, but maybe he was in denial. Since they knew about the witch grandmother, the mother became extremely prayerful. She said this is the first time her mother discovered something about the grandmother. At the time, Tolu wasn't even born yet, but Tolu has an older brother. So after the mother gave birth to the brother, the grandmother came to the house. In the middle of the night, this baby just starts crying, like hysterically crying. Mom is trying everything to console this little boy and nothing. It wasn't until the mother stepped outside with the crying baby that she realized that the baby stopped crying. At first she thought like he's a newborn, so he's just being difficult. Until she noticed that when she walked back into the bedroom to put the baby back to sleep, the cries were worst. The mother's like, okay, this is weird. So she starts looking around the bedroom to see if she notices anything. She went to check under the bed. And y'all, she found some traditional nganga stuff, like right underneath the bed. Nganga means witch. And as soon as she discovered the witchy stuff under the bed, why the grandmother stormed into the room and just starts going off on Shorty. Like going off, cussing her out, calling her everything but a child of God. Like vulgar. Tolu's mother was so troubled by this. And mind you, it wasn't just Tolu's mother, the baby, and the grandmother that was in the house that night. There were other relatives there. So Tolu's mother went to those other relatives that witnessed the verbal abuse and asked them if they know anything weird about the grandmother. And the relatives that were there confirmed that, in fact, the grandmother was a nganga. A Muroi in this case, because she did not use her gifts positively. Whole time, grandma was trying to initiate Tolu's mother in her sleep, which would then explain at the time why the baby kept crying and would not let his mother sleep. Babies be knowing. And if you thought it stopped there, it got worse. Basically, Tolu's mother knew what the grandmother was doing and said, no thank you. I don't want to be initiated as a witch. And the grandmother didn't like that. She made Tolu's mother public enemy number 1. And besides, Tolu's mother knew the grandmother's secret now, so it was like, well, gotta strike before she does. And in the midst of all of that, the grandmother was still messing with them. Said that grandmother started sending weird things to the house, like bats, spirits that they would hear speaking but could not see, snakes, that would have done it for me personally, insects, among other things. And every time they would run into one of these things, they would spray holy water and it would disappear right in front of their eyes. So fast forward to Tolu being, her age now. She has an older brother. Her mother winds up having another son. This would be Tolu's younger brother. And now knowing that there was a grandmother spiritually attacking them, the family knew that they had to be very prayerful. So they would wake up every single day at 4 in the morning and pray religiously. On this one day though, her mother woke up. She went to go check on Tolu's younger brother, being her youngest son. And y'all, why the baby gone? Mother checks and there's no baby. But the weird thing is that all the doors were still locked, the windows were shut, and the burglar bars were still in the windows. So the mother went around the house, waking everyone up to see who had the baby, and no one inside the house had the baby. There was no sign of forced entry. There was no sign of somebody coming into this house or even leaving this house. So where is the baby? So everybody in the house just gathers together and just starts praying. After praying and praying and praying, they start to hear a baby cry. But the cry is coming from outside. Why would... I remember all the doors were locked on the inside, no sign of forced entry. So when they're hearing this baby cry outside, somebody's like, well, let's go outside and go get it. So they unlock all the doors from the inside and rush outside to get the baby while everybody else stayed in the house praying. And as that's happening, the people who were praying in the living room starts to hear somebody crying in the middle of the living room. But it's somebody that they cannot see. And the spirit that's speaking to them is begging them to stop the praying because it's seriously hurting them. And obviously they didn't stop praying. They actually kept praying until the crying stopped. The following day, they got a call from the grandmother, and all she said, "The God you pray is too strong and answers your prayers," and hung up. But the grandmother didn't stop there. Tolu said, "I don't know if you want me to tell you more because these stories ended in 2022 when she died. But then I saw this other guy who is into spiritual stuff and told me that I'm spiritually sensitive and that there is something who is protecting me. And because of this, that my grandmother also wanted her gifts." So the grandmother was actually relentless for a pretty long time after that, and she has plenty more stories where that comes from. Thank you guys so much for watching this spooky story. If you guys enjoy these spooky stories, you better make sure you are following me on TikTok. And if you haven't already, or looking forward to longer and better spooky stories, I have the longer and better spooky stories available on YouTube. So go ahead and go over to my YouTube channel and subscribe. I have a link tree on the top of my TikTok page. Yup, it's cute, it's fancy. Click on the link tree. All my links will pop up. My Instagram, my YouTube will also pop up. While you're there, follow me on Instagram just so that I know that it's real. Duh. I did all of that in one take. Yeah. Make sure you bully my follow button just for that one. And let me know where you guys want to hear a spooky story from next. Your favorite Haitian homegirl.
Alafia! My name is Oshun. On this channel, we uncover the creepiest, most unusual haunted TikToks the internet has to offer for entertainment purposes. Y'all are my soul tribe. Tribe is with a Y, because the Y is for you, and that's because I love you so freaking deaking sneaking much. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the Soul Tribe for your weekly dose of supernatural, coming to you every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursdays. We go live Friday nights, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now let's get to this video.
We're in a rush. Go get your snack. They about to ban this app. They is. I'm telling you, they is. How else am I supposed to fatten y'all up? I mean, tell y'all to get snacks. Oh, yes, I know. My YouTube. So, yeah, and make sure you guys go subscribe to my YouTube and my Instagram, too. Anyways, for this story, let's call this guy Tom. This is a very quick story. So, one day, Tom goes out with his friends. Tom is in college. And he goes out with his frat friends. And yes, the submitter of the story, he is indeed white. Am I allowed to say that? I hope I don't get banned for saying that. Anyway, Tom was friends, you know, he was a frat boy. So one night, he was in college, they all decided to go to a party. Now, there's this one girl that he had class with, him and his frat boys. If you know frat boys, you know they're not very nice people. And there was this foreign exchange student, the girl I'm talking about. Let's call her Ewa Olua, because she was Nigerian. Anyways, so her accent was very strong, obviously, but she was very smart. But a lot of the frat guys, they weren't very nice to her, you know? She kept to herself. She didn't really speak much, but she was at the top of her class. Anyways, they go out to party, and they see Ewa at the party. She was with, like, two other girls that they didn't really recognize, but they didn't really care either. And they spot her, and they start talking about her, like, hey, that's that Nigerian foreign exchange student, that African booty scratcher. And they know how smart she is, and they all have a project coming up. And they think about how they're going to use her to help them with the project. And Tom, being the asshole that he was back in college, he's like, don't worry, guys, I got this. And he approaches Ewa, and he tries to rizz her up. Well, he does. He rizzes her up. They end up dancing on the floor, and he's looking at the guys like, yup, I got this in the bag. Long story short, Ewa goes back to his dorm with him. Ewa's thinking all of this is innocent, right? Until it wasn't. Until he tried to make a move on Ewa, and she's like, I don't really want to do that. And Tom is like, oh, okay, cool. That's cool and all. But I do want to ask you for a favor. Ewa's like, what's the favor? And he's like, me and my boys, we need help with our project. I was wondering if you can help us with it. Long story short, his riz wasn't that good, and Ewa caught on to the fact that they were just trying to use her. The moment she caught on to that fact, she switches her mind. She's like, actually, I think you're really cute. And he's standing there thinking like, I knew I had this in the bag. Long story short, they do the do. But he said it was a weird feeling because while they were doing the do, you know how, I'm going to be explicit here. You know how it's supposed to be warm? It wasn't warm. It was cold. And Ewa was staring at him the whole time. She wasn't making any noises. She was just looking at him. Like, she'll make some noises, but he can tell that she was faking it. He's thinking like, dang, is my thing not, like, is it that bad? I never had a girl do this before. But then again, she's African, so she's probably used to, you know, BBC. This is Tom saying this, not me, y'all. Anyways, boom. They do the do. His self-esteem is crashed because clearly Ewa wasn't enjoying it. But what he didn't know, it wasn't even about his self-esteem. His thing probably was, not satisfying, but that's not what it was. Ewa caught on to the fact that they was trying to use her, and they didn't know who Ewa was back in her village. And y'all, after he did that with Ewa, for the next semester, he failed every single class. And it wasn't even him. It wasn't even just him. It was him and his friends. They all failed. But he just failed the worst because he was the one that actually did the deed with her. And he only knows it was Ewa because Ewa ends up telling him, because when she was graduating, he was supposed to be graduating with her, but he wasn't because he stayed back. And she very boldly told him that she did voodoo on him so that he would fail because she knew. And at first he didn't believe it. He didn't believe what she did because he didn't believe in that stuff. And then he found my page, and then he found all the stories, and he's like, wow, that girl wasn't kidding. She really got me. Anyway, I told y'all this would be short.
Know how much your skin is worth? Human skin on the black market is $10 per square inch. On average, we have to $160 for square inches of flesh. So cash that in at $2,640.
This story come from my uncle who was born on Halloween. He always had the craziest, creepiest, unbelievable stories you'll ever hear. Now, he told me about on his job, he drives a cement truck, and it was a young black lady who got the job, and she was all happy to try to prove herself and prove that she could do everything that the men's could do. So when him and her got to the job site, they posed, and he took a picture or whatever because she was all excited. Every job she did, she just was, posting on social media and all that kind of stuff, I guess, or Facebook or whatever. So when they got to the job, it was down a real steep hill, like an incline. And he was like, man, I don't know if we can, because a cement truck, when it's fully loaded, can be like 100,000 pounds. So he knew that if that truck gets going down that hill and lose control, it ain't going to stop until something make it stop. And imagine what it'd take to make a dang big old cement truck stop. So he was like, I don't know, I really ain't feeling it. So he said he gonna call dispatch. Now when he called dispatch, they ain't there. So they said, well, the other truck went down there. Blah, blah. So she said, don't worry, I'll go. So she go down there. And he said, as soon as she started down that hill, she tried to put it like an all-wheel drive. But as soon as he said, she said she must hit the wrong button, or something happened, or the ground up under her gave way. Maybe it was kind of wet or something like that. And he said she started flying down that hill. He said full speed. And it got when sometimes the trucks, they get to going like that. So if you trying to hit the brake, your foot will get knocked off that brake, man. Like I done had that happen to me before. I go over something and then the seat's made to bounce to stop you from getting hemorrhoids and stuff. So when your foot missed that brake, that truck got to flying down that hill. And he said the sound it made, he said it hit the trees, ran through the trees, went through the house, and kept on going back through the house and out into the backyard somewhere. He said he couldn't see it when it went through the house, but he said the sound that it made. He said it sounded like somebody dropping a building on top of another building, man. Now, later on, after he called the dispatch and the fire department, the police and all that, and the emergency people, he said later on that night, when he got home, he looking through his phone. And he said when he looked at the picture of her eyes was all blacked out on that picture.
The family mysteriously disappeared in 1996 and were never found. What's up, my urban crimers? I got a good mystery for y'all tonight. Make sure you drop a like and hit that follow button for more true crime content. Follow me on YouTube for actual crime scene footage and interviews from victims. Also, tune in to my live tonight where we watch true crime stories together. Now let's get into the story. This is the very mysterious story of Everett and Lydia Thompson. They vanished from their home in 1996 along with their two sons, Everett Jr. and Andrew. This story takes place in Chicago, Illinois, also known to have one of the highest murder rates in U.S. history. Everett and Lydia were successful business owners in the Chicago area. They owned their own restaurant, Eat Company Pizza, and served to the thriving Chicago community. They had two young sons, 11-year-old Everett Jr. and 8-year-old Andrew, who they loved dearly. Lydia and her siblings inherited a home from her parents in which her family lived in. Lydia had a brother, Kenneth White, who was also living at the home. He was just released from prison on a rape conviction, and no one in the family wanted to take him in. So he was basically forced to live in the home that he inherited also. Family and friends were very unhappy about this decision. Everett's family looked at Kenneth as a freeloader, and they did not want him anywhere near their son. And only 4 months after Kenneth moved in, disaster would strike. One day, Lydia made a frantic call to police, stating that Kenneth was chasing her with an axe, and he also threatened to kill her multiple times. When police arrived, the situation had calmed down, so no reports were made. On July 5th, 1996, Eric received a frantic call from Lydia, stating that Kenneth was once again chasing her around the house with an axe and was threatening to kill her. She was so terrified that she was forced to lock herself inside a restroom. She begged Eric to come home right away and help her. Eric was also on the phone with his father when Lydia made the frantic call. He explained to his father what was happening and rushed home to help her. That would be the last time the father would hear from his son. 2 hours later, Kenneth arrives at the family restaurant. He is also driving the company van that Everett usually drives. When questioned on the whereabouts of Everett, Kenneth states that he was involved in a car accident and was also arrested for it. Employees of the restaurant also stated that they noticed blood on Kenneth's white shoes. Weeks had passed and Everett's father had not heard from him. He then went to police to do a welfare check on the family. When police arrived at the home, Kenneth was there all alone. He stated that the family went to Philadelphia to visit Everett's family. But didn't Everett's family send a wellness check? Over the next few weeks, Kenneth continued to make up various stories on where the family was. Everett's family would get frustrated and eventually travel to Chicago to look for the family themselves. The employees at the restaurant told them about Kenneth's story and also told them about the blood on his shoes. Police then began a further investigation on Kenneth. They later found out that there never had been an accident and Kenneth was lying about his stories, just trying to figure out how it took weeks for them to further investigate this man. Like, that's crazy. Everett's family would then put more pressure on authorities to find out the whereabouts of the family. They also discovered that Kenneth had forged Lydia's name on several documents, including one to sell the home. An inspector came and discovered the new owners had gutted out the entire home for new renovations. But despite all the evidence against him, charges were still never brought against Kenneth. He moved to a trailer in Gary, Indiana in July of 1997, just a year after the family's disappearance, and continued with his normal life. But in November of 1997, he was arrested for failing to register as a sex offender. He was released, but then arrested again a month later for forging Lydia's signature on a $13,000 check. Kenneth White will go on to hang himself in his jail cell on Christmas Day in December of 1997. He had no motive and did not leave a note. It's still unknown what happened to the Thompson family, and they have never been found. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Now that was a crazy one right there, y'all. Let me know what y'all think for real in the comments. If you like this story, make sure you drop a like and hit that follow button for more true crime content.
Go follow him, y'all. He be having some good stories, but that story is crazy. Crazy. Like, and the family was never found. Like, their bodies was never found. That's just so sad. Them two boys, they're babies.
At around 5 o'clock in the evening on June 25th, 1999, a man named Ricky McCormick stumbled into an emergency room in St. Louis, Missouri, with his hand over his chest, complaining that he couldn't breathe. He said he had asthma, and earlier that day he had been cutting the grass, and so maybe that had caused a flare-up. But either way, here he was in a lot of discomfort, saying, I need help. Ricky was 41 years old, and for his whole life, he had had heart and lung problems, and so him arriving in this state in the ER was actually not all that uncommon for him. And so this hospital did what they did with anyone who came in complaining that they couldn't breathe. They immediately took Ricky to a back exam room, and they hooked him up to all these monitors to make sure his heartbeat was steady and that his oxygen levels were plenty high. And once Ricky was in the exam room getting hooked up, he started acting really agitated, and he kept looking around the room like he was scared that someone was going to jump out at him. And he was also sweating profusely, and whenever he did speak, he spoke so quickly no one could really understand him. But despite Ricky's odd behavior, the heart monitor showed his heart was beating steadily, his oxygen levels were perfectly fine, and when the doctor came in and examined Ricky, even though he clearly saw that something was off about Ricky, there wasn't any sign that there was anything physically wrong with Ricky. And so the doctor and the nurses agreed that whatever was going on with Ricky had to be psychological. And as it happened, Ricky did have a long history of psychological issues. He was known for making things up all the time, just telling people these crazy stories about himself, like how he was this talented singer and he was about to go on tour, or that he was actually a prince, or that he was studying to be a doctor. I mean, things that nobody thought was true, but Ricky would say as if this is just common knowledge, this is who I am. And so Ricky's family for the longest time had just assumed that Ricky was either bipolar or maybe schizophrenic. Those are both serious mental health disorders that totally disrupt normal thinking. But Ricky, despite being encouraged by his friends and family to go get help, never got help for any of his psychological issues. And so Ricky's life had kind of gone off the rails. He had dropped out of high school and not gone back to any sort of schooling, and he had spent some time in jail. Now, Ricky was living in a low-income, very dangerous part of St. Louis, which is a big Midwestern city on the Mississippi River that in 1999 had a very serious issue with gang violence. Ricky absolutely hated it there, but he had no way to actually leave St. Louis. In fact, Ricky didn't even have his own place. He bounced around from his mother's place, his aunt's place, and his girlfriend's place. Ricky did work, but the work was very sporadic, and it was for the most part just night shifts for random odd jobs. And when Ricky was actually working, he really just spent his time chain smoking cigarettes and drinking literally gallons of coffee. Back at the ER, Ricky, who was still in the exam room, had only been there for less than an hour when the doctor came back in and told Ricky that he was okay and he was going to be discharged. Now, Ricky immediately said, no, I have to be here tonight. I need to stay here. You need to admit me. but the doctor just kind of ignored what he said and handed him the discharge paperwork. 15 minutes later, when a nurse came back into the exam room to get this paperwork from Ricky, she would walk in and see Ricky still sitting on the exam bed, kind of fidgeting around, looking down at this paperwork on his lap that immediately she saw he had not filled out. He had just signed his name at the bottom. And when she walked in, Ricky looked up at her and he kind of shrugged his shoulders and looked at her and was like, "I don't know how to read or write. Can you help me?" And so the nurse immediately felt bad for Ricky. I mean, he's got dirty clothes on, he looks thin and frail, he's clearly very down on his luck, there's some issues happening with this guy, and he can't even fill out his discharge paperwork. And so she said, no problem. She sat down with him, and together they filled out his paperwork. And then afterwards, when she walked him out of the exam room back to the front of the hospital, Ricky turned to her and said, instead of going home, can you just let me stay here in the lobby just for tonight? And this nurse, who knew she was not allowed to do this, she looked around and saw it was not a busy night there. And so she said, okay, as long as you don't bother anyone, you can stay here. And so Ricky thanked her repeatedly and then walked over to the corner, kind of far away from the front desk and far away from the front door. And he sat down and folded his arms, and then he just stared at the front door. And so this nurse assumed that Ricky actually must be homeless, especially based on, how he came in and how he was acting. And so she figured, he needs a place that's warm to stay tonight. And so the nurse went back to her station, and over the course of the next several hours, she would periodically look out into the lobby, expecting to see Ricky kind of curled up asleep in the corner. But every time she looked out there, Ricky was still sitting upright, arms folded, staring at the front door of the hospital as if he was expecting someone to come in at any moment and he needed to be ready. And so she thought this was unusual, but she decided not to intervene. She just let him sit there and do his thing. Later that morning at 11:30 a.m., when the nice nurse who had allowed Ricky to stay in the lobby was leaving her shift, another crew...
Welcome to part 2. So, the guy utlela ke mkelelo hore o itse keng ere ke fonle maphodisa to find out hore o irahalang ke report missing ke file a missing person. Guy ha fonla maphodisa ka mokhowe khola maphodisa itse njani, it's only ringing but don't motho ya answerang. Guy o thomo panic a bone hore what's going on. Instead of a founele di family members tsa hae, just because of the family members they only know hore like gona le someone a mo datang for mengwaha but a ba itse le hore ke mang o pregnant and stuff, just because of o choositse go hide la family just because of the girl lena na sanya go mo tsebisa ba go ha. So the guy o founela chomi tsa hae tse ithusa makhowa ba ba leng ko function ya go mmereko o go nna ba botse go pale ke mo ka pele like there's something going on. Chomi ke driver ka pele di fitla go ntlong di fitla go ntlong ya ba botse re itse ke mosadi o disappearile ya para a diteng ke tsore o irahalang ene ka itse she would never antlohele cause like nalena like we stuck to one another. So the guy benong o thomo panic re ntse ha di fitla wa botse. So like the guy, instead of tshwanetse di suggest mapodisa ke mo dinyaka any evidence e leng hore like dinyaka di mo thusa ho like the city discount how ne motho go fridging everything is sorted koro kare like the guy is living alone kam khoba bonang everything e leng ka teng and then chomitsa ha ke mo di decide leng hore itse keng ya mapodisa etlela one of his friends o phone itse mapodisa mo, and then that's when call it in. And then the guy a fiwa phone a tlhalosa everything. Then when motor a tle police station ka pele ha tla police station ka pele ba etsa ba mo musa busa di question a araba, and then mapodisa ba romela batho ba o checka dilo ba go jarateng ya the guy. So ba romela batho ba investigate ba yo checka hore di ntshanga mola, they found nothing, even a single strand of hair on his head. So they were like guy wait again ara kono krasilo, how about or information ya ngwanyano at least re kono busa di family members and stuff. He provided them lebitso le sfane, and then aya jarate ka pelo botlhoko ibile tsekeng azanka aja dikhwedi. He waited for like 3 months for ba boemo ena ba kono motso re dintsa how ba mo ena ba motse hore like we found a family e leng hore re thinka hore ke a ngwanyana hao. So ha ba buso hore like ish tsekeng what's going on what ba motse hore ba mo fa address ba volunteera ho mokhapa ba mo fa address gore a yo utlwa gore what's going on go ngwanyana o. The guy found out gore ngwanyana o nna ko provinceng e leng gore ena mo yona. So ha ya ko teng ko malapeng la teng, it's gore o ka mahara ha motse o ka mahara ha sekwa, so like metse ela e leng gore it distant from another. And then ha fitla ko teng ba nisa fatshe ditilo and stuff, ke family, ke mmahae, ke bana ba kwa ba 2, and then papa bona o tlhokofetse le, and then papa teng o tlhokofetse. So like yeah, sharp ona fatshe pila ile imaketse familiar like what's going on le maphodisa, and then ebe maphodisa ba bolela hore mama re tlisitse motho mo ere na o botse gore o irahala eng and stuff. So the guy wa tlhaloso gore like le seking ke nna le ngwana lena e leng sebanbane, ke ampor husband there because I was about to propose, and also re expectile ngwana of which I kitso re setsa melile or yang, and o disappearile a kitso re okay. So like mama hae kuru mo lebeletse ka what's going on, like she's in oitlala. Meanwhile ha ira so ngwana ko ha bo ngwanyana o mo pela bona mo wa lla to mo labenong the guy confused to benong amakala go irala. The guy benong ke mo ba motsang hore motho o bolelang ka ena o since a tlokofetse motho o bolelang ka ena o na le close to boma 10 years as first thing since a tlokofetse motho o maketse ma go like the guy o maketse because ma ke motho moholo, so ha tlhalosa ndo le ena o maketse like the guy o butsisa ka eng because like ngwana rena sentse re molekile. So after mama o butsisa the guy o motho re mphe full description ya ngwana. So the guy answer phone ka mkhola o ronya ka bontsha di picture because na le mo eleng gore ka kilona le ha tshaka mo di picture the guy o iwana. So benong kiki like the guy le na wa bona ke mo ke o iwana mo di picture kona gore like he's in shock, ha itse o irahala mphile ka re wa half after hours ya he o tshwile o maketse mama o a decide gore o itse keng ha re emeleng go bontsha le bitla la ngwana rona a re itse re retlela ka eng. Mama wa emella o nya go bontsha the guy le bitla guy wa le bona le bitla le ngotse le bitso le sefane gore o be le winning letsatsi la lefu. Guy ha last sebaka 2 years after on ntsa tsamaya di petlele tsa tlhaloganyo sile ba tlhokofala.
Nakakapangilabot naman ang grupo ng mga tao na ito na nahulikam ng isang lalaki dahil ang mga tao ay mabagal maglakad at nakapila. Hindi rin maaninag ang kanilang mga ulo at muka. Ayon sa mga nagko-comment, baka ito ay membro ng mga kulto o kaya naman ay sinaniban ng mga masasamang espiritu. Kayo na ang humusga sa videong ito.
I am the reason you should not visit Japan. My name is Okiku, the haunted doll. I was once a happy little girl in Japan, living with my loving family. One day, my brother Aikichi brought me a beautiful doll from Sapporo. She had black hair, a bright kimono, and the sweetest face. I loved her so much that I named her after myself, Okiku. She became my closest friend, always by my side. But then, everything changed. I fell ill, a sickness that came quickly and left no time for goodbyes. I passed away, leaving my family in tears. They couldn't let me go, so they placed my precious doll on the family altar to keep my memory alive. That's when strange things started to happen. My doll's hair began to grow, longer and longer, as if I was still with them. My family believed it was my spirit living inside the doll, reaching out to them. When my family moved, they entrusted me to the priests at Manenji Temple in Hokkaido. Even now, I remain there. My hair still grows, and the priests trim it regularly. Guys, comment your country, and I will make a story from there.
This mysterious man appears in people's dreams and they never wake up. In 1954, in the small town of Cambridge, Ohio, people started having the same nightmare. They dreamed of a tall man with pale skin, black eyes, and a sinister grin. He wore a dark suit and never spoke, but each night he got closer. At first, no one believed it was more than a bad dream, but then people began dying in their sleep. They were found in their beds with looks of terror frozen on their faces. The townsfolk were terrified, but no one knew what to do. A young man named Sam Sussy tried to stay awake, too scared to sleep, but after 3 days, he couldn't fight it anymore. That night, the man appeared in Sam's dream. He smiled and whispered, "You can't run. I'm already here." Sam woke up, gasping for air, but as he turned on the light, his heart stopped. The man from his dream was standing in the corner of his room, grinning. The man wasn't just haunting dreams, he used them to enter the real world. By morning, Sam was gone, and the man had disappeared again, waiting for his next victim. Now in Cambridge, no one sleeps peacefully. They know that once they dream, the man might step out of their nightmares and into their lives.
Back with another spooky story. So what happened to the girl with the zombie mother? If you don't know what I'm talking about, click on this comment. This is the update. So after the girl met her auntie and they took her back to the family's house in the village, and the family was interrogating her, asking her all types of questions about her mother. The daughter is 18 years old and the family members are telling her that her mother died 16 years ago. So with gathering information, they figure that they're talking about the same person. But it's kind of hard for the family to accept this girl because literally your mother literally did die. And to prove it, some of the family members actually took her to where part of her mother's body was buried. Her mom was buried in Benin and part of her was brought to Ghana to bury. And they did it that way because that's just a part of their culture. So basically the family took her to where her mother was buried and showed her everything like, yeah, she's a dead woman, she's gone. They all come back home and everybody's just confused. So a different day, the daughter decided that she wanted to go back to her mother's burial grounds because the last time all her family was with her, hovering over her, so she wanted this experience by herself this time. So she went there alone and she's sitting there by the grave crying. She is hysterical. She's crying, like confused, asking herself questions like, why me? Did I really live with a zombie for 18 years? So she gets up and leaves the burial site. And on her way back to the family house, guess who she ran into? So on her way back to the family house, she sees this person approaching her on the road. And when she looks closer, she could see that it's her deceased mother walking towards her. And at that moment, they met. And her deceased mother warned her about something scarier than her actually seeing a dead woman. Her mother told her that no matter what she does, never to go back to Benin. And her mother also confirmed the mystery by saying, in case you're wondering, I did die. So basically, she went back to the family's house, told them that she saw her deceased mother yet again, and basically she was accused of being a witch by the family members. They also were not believing her when she was denying being a witch, so she literally had no choice but to leave the family's house. She can't go back to Benin, and she cannot stay at her family's house. So she wound up going to a town about 1,500 kilometers away from the family house. She's thinking at this point she Gucci. She moved so far away, that family thing is in her past. A whole witch drama, she doesn't have to worry about it anymore. But because her story is so unusual, the daughter of a dead woman popped up after 18 years claiming that her mother raised her and sent her here. Everybody in that family basically went around the entire town telling what happened. So the girl's story was actually pretty popular. Even if she was 1,500 kilometers away, odds are somebody heard that story. So she said one of the people who were living in the town where the family was, they came to the town that she settled in and they started spreading rumors everywhere about that girl, about her mom. It turned that story every way but loose. They were accusing her of being a witch. So she even took the stories to one of those reality shows in Ghana, which is called, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Oyerepa. And according to her, when she went on that show, the people on the show made her to even feel even worse. Because the ones who was interviewing her during the show was like giving her this vibe, like she's a witch or she's a freak or something. Most people think that the daughter of the dead woman is weird. Or they think that she behaves this certain way that's not normal. Yeah, if you guys were wondering, woman is still alive. She is currently married, she has a child, and she is now 29 years old. In case you are wondering how that one ended, because I really wanted to know, and thank you, Miss, for getting back to me on the rest of the story. If this is your first time seeing my face, make sure you follow me on TikTok, For better, longer, spooky stories, make sure you guys head over to YouTube, subscribe, and go.
Do not listen to this scary story at nighttime or right before you're going to bed. Because I love you so much, I'm giving you this warning because what the fuck? So typically, I listen to a lot of Spanish scary stories because I like translating translating them for you guys. I typically listen to these when my husband's asleep next to me and I'm just like scrolling story through story, right? I will say when I listened to this story, I got full body chills, right? But I was like, okay, cool, I'm saving this. This is gonna be a good ass story, and I just kept going. A lot of the times you guys ask me in my comments, like, how do you sleep after reading all these stories? And I'm gonna be honest, I sleep perfectly well. Like, typically I'm not scared, and I wasn't scared last night, which is why it's so weird that I had a dream about this fucking story. I guess this story really impacted me more than I thought. So I'm gonna translate the story for you guys, and then I'm gonna tell you the dream that I had at the very end. So there was this girl, she was around 15 or 16 years old, and she lived with her mom. Unfortunately, her mom lost her job and they had no money, so they ended up losing their house as well. So one of the mom's family members tells them that they have a house that they can live in because they didn't want them to be homeless, but unfortunately this house was like away from civilization. This house was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by like hills and mountains, but since the mom and daughter had nowhere else to go, they accepted the offer and decided to go live in this house. They end up going to the house, and when they get there, they notice the strangest thing ever. Right in front of the door is this big ass tree. Like, the tree was so big that when they would try to open the front door, it would be hitting that tree. So the mom thought it was really strange that the tree would be like right in front of the front door. So the people who actually gave them a ride to that house noticed the tree as well, and they told the mom that if she wanted to, they can also help her remove that tree so that it doesn't stop the front door from opening. And she agreed, so they decided to do it then and there. When they removed that tree, on the roots of like where the tree was growing, they see like a skeleton of a baby. The mom says that it looked like maybe someone had buried the baby a very long time ago because the bones of the baby's skeleton were just being eaten by the roots of that tree. She said that they didn't end up telling anybody about it. She just, had the tree removed, they saw that, and they just like moved on with their lives. Time passes, and in this house, it's a 2-bedroom home. It's a little small, but it does have a hallway that leads to both of the rooms. Both the mom and the daughter start hearing noises in the hallway, and they realize that it sounds like a little baby. She even said it doesn't sound like an animal, it didn't sound like a kid, there was no like steps walking, it sounded like a baby playing in the hallway. So the mom almost felt guilty because she felt like something had happened there. I mean, they found the baby bones, and she just felt really bad that maybe the baby ghost was there. So she started leaving out baby toys in the hallway. I already have chills. So after leaving the toys in the hallway, the mom says that they would then start hearing this baby playing with those specific toys that were left out for it. She mentions that nothing scary would happen, but she did feel that over time, the baby's energy was growing and growing. So one day, the mom and daughter get into a really big fight. And I mean, they were screaming at each other, like they were going at it, and the daughter ends up going to her room and like slamming the door, and mom also goes to her room and slams the door. So when the mom goes into her room, slams the door, and sits alone, she realizes that maybe she was a little tough on her daughter. Mom felt so bad and so guilty that she's like, I'm gonna go to her room and I'm gonna, apologize, and let's try to talk through it. So the mom goes and she knocks on her daughter's door, and of course the daughter didn't answer because she was pissed. After the daughter not answering her door, the mom still decided to open the door, and she starts off with, look, I really need to talk to you. And then she stays silent. The daughter was laying on her bed and she was like, what? That's when the mom was like, get up and come with me. And the daughter's like, what? And the mom's like, get up and come with me. The daughter's like, I thought you wanted to talk to me. And she goes, shut up, get up and come with me. So once the daughter realizes that something is going on because the mom was really seriously telling her to get up, she gets up. Her mom grabs her by the hand, they leave her bedroom, close her bedroom door, and the mom takes her back to her own room. So the mom explains that when she opened her daughter's door and told her, I need to talk to you, she looks at her daughter that's laying on the bed, and she sees a baby on top of her daughter's chest. She says that the baby was not a normal baby. When the mom was telling her daughter, get up and come with me, that baby would hold on to her daughter even tighter, looking at the mom and smiling at her. Oh my god, look at my arm. I think the reason why I imagine these stories in my head, so I'm seeing this shit like a movie in my brain. Can you imagine? She walked in there feeling so guilty that she got into a fight with her mom, tries to talk to her, and fucking sees a baby on her daughter's chest as she's telling her, get up and let's go. Baby hugs her daughter tighter while looking at her smiling. They left that house that night and never looked back, didn't go back to investigate, didn't want to know what the fuck happened there, because at that point it wasn't just a little innocent baby ghost, because she saw a baby, but it was not a normal looking baby. Now for my dream. So in my dream, I'm laying in bed. Leave it to me to take naps in my dream too. And next to me is one of my ex.
That was a whole ass demon child on her, trying to attach to her. Hopefully it didn't.
This because my dream wasn't scary enough. And in my dream, I'm waking up because I'm feeling something crawling up my body. And when this thing finally gets to the very top, I see a scary looking baby with fucking crazy teeth. And you know how like in your dreams you can't fight? It's like slow motion. Well, as soon as I saw that face, my hand was like trying to push it away. I mean, the baby was like biting my hand. And I was like, what do I do? Because I'm moving so slowly. I was pushing that baby towards my ex, who was still asleep, because what the fuck? Take him, not me. But this baby wouldn't give up. It kept trying to come at me, and to the point where I'm slowly moving my fucking head away. It doesn't sound as scary, but like it was fucked up in my dream, okay? So the baby's still crawling, and once it's like face to face to me, I guess I got so spooked that I woke myself up. All it had to do was go to my ex, like, why the fuck would you want me? But no, I got really scared. I woke up and I was like, what the fuck was I dreaming about right now? Anyway, I hope you don't have dreams about this story.
I freaking hate those slow motion dreams, bruh. Like, I hate it. Oh my goodness. I hate those freaking slow motion dreams. I've had so many of them. I had them mainly when I was younger. Now I don't have that too much because I can like somewhat control my dreams, lucid dreaming. But baby,
What's up, true crime baddies? I am back with another crime time video, and as time with a while, y'all already know what's going on by now. So today's case, not a good one. Not a great one at all. I'm putting a trigger warning at the beginning of this video because it does involve the death of a child. And if that's something you don't want to hear about today, scroll past this video. This is Ciara Day and her beautiful, beautiful daughter, Anaya Day Garrett. And you will look at this picture and think that she's a loving and caring mother. She's not. She's a piece of shit, let me tell you. Ciara met Michael, Anaya's father, in the summer of 2012, and the relationship was very short-lived because after Anaya was born, Ciara began to act very strange, and Michael ended up leaving and moving a couple towns over, so he was only seeing Anaya on the weekends. When Anaya started daycare, that's kind of when the trouble started trickling in. So there were 14 claims of abuse, and I say claims because these claims were not reported to authorities. I want to say that literally every week when Anaya was coming to daycare, they were documenting what was happening to her from September, October, November, December. She was coming in with a whole bunch of bruises, blood in her ear, just a whole bunch of stuff that was going on with her. And CCFS, that's what it's called in Ohio, were contacted a few times, and the claims were always, you know, like Ciara always had a reason for what was going on. Anaya fell, she tripped. Like, what 4-year-old is really that clumsy? Like, let's really be for real. And on May 18th, 2017, Anaya came to daycare and she was badly beaten, and they contact CCFS again, and then the claims are basically unsubstantiated and they threw it out. And at that point, that is when Ciara decided, you know what, I'm going to pull Anaya out of this daycare, and that's exactly what she did. In the summer of 2017, around July, is when Ciara started dating Dante Lewis. And when she started dating Dante, the abuse that was going on was upped a little bit more. And Ciara's sister began to notice that her niece was acting strange, like her personality was changing. She was very withdrawn and became concerned for Anaya. Dante claims that he didn't live in the house, that he will only visit when he had the time, but he primarily lived with his mother, and that, he didn't abuse Anaya, but we know the truth. The concern for Anaya's safety grew and grew, and Sierra's sister decided, I'm going to tell Michael. And when she tells Michael, Michael reports it to the police, and you know what Sierra does? She goes and gets a restraining order on Michael and says that he's stalking her and Anaya. And you know what the courts do? They grant her this bogus restraining order. And Michael decides, you know what? I'm going to fight for custody of my daughter. And they had like a visitation schedule for March 11, 2018. I'm going to get to it in part 2.
Hating gabi nang paliparin ng lalaki ang kanyang drone sa liblib na lugar na ito. Ang lugar ay usap-usapan na marami ang nagpaparamdam dito. Maingat na nagpapalipad ang lalaki ng kanyang drone dahil maraming sanga-sanga rito at posibleng maging sanhi ng pagbagsak ng kanyang drone. Sa medyo kalayuan ay may biglang sumulpot na lamang na isang lalaki na walang damit pang itaas, nagmamadali.
That was not no freaking vampire. That was a brother being creepy. Why the hell was he in the woods like that in the dark? It could have been a setup. He was cute. Am I weird? I don't know. I seen a very attractive face. I like chocolate, okay? He looked like he had a big-ass pretty smile, some chinky eyes, some nice waves, a nice athletic body. Come see me. Serious note, Anaya, that's really sad. I don't have a part 2. I will try to start incorporating all parts and just make it a video like that eventually. I can't make any promises. Like I said, when I do these videos, I just watch the literal first 3 seconds of the video just to see if I can use it. And then I download it, keep it moving. So I don't know that these videos have parts or anything like that. So if I start to do it like that, just know my reaction might not be as authentic because I will have had to watch some of it and then try to look for the parts of it and all of that extra shit that y'all begging for. So we'll see. But rest in peace to her. May her energy live on forever. May her memory not be forgotten. And prayers to her, condolences to her family. And yeah, that was for baby Anaya. But you reached the end of another video. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here with me and spending your quality time with me, baby. I do not take it for granted whatsoever. Y'all are my soul tribe, my love bugs, my honey buns. And without you guys, I'm not much of anything on YouTube. So I appreciate you. The Y is for you because I love you so freaking much. I appreciate you. I love you. Tune in for the next one. Oh yeah, our fast. It's about to be the first. Let's get started. Get your body ready for this fast, honey. The first, the second, and the third. Ashe.
Where do you lie down when you head? Open my third eyes, on my way. I'ma open my one eye, be in dementia. You on my body, but I'm not a Christian. I'm not a religion, but you two are true. This is how the